Welcome to the Babbles Nonsense podcast, where I'm your host, Jonna Grimes, and we're here to discuss any and all things, but especially the shit that I want to talk about. Because let's face it, I have a lot of shit to say. And after all, you are listening to my verbal diary. Let's get started. All right, guys, I'm back with another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast. I have Dr. Solis here with me. He works in the emergency room that I work at. If y'all know where I live, then you know which emergency room I'm talking about, but we always say it shall remain nameless. So Dr. Solis and I wanted to jump on a podcast because he is moving. So welcome, Dr. Solis.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Jenna.
Everyone gets nervous because they're like, but it's just me and you in a room.
Yeah,
but then you know people are going to listen to it, so then everyone gets nervous, but It's fine. So we wanted to talk about kind of our journey in the ER and then you're moving. But I wanted to go back because I think that your story is very interesting because you are not originally from the United States, correct?
Correct. I'm from Panama originally.
And then you moved here when you were how old?
I was 17.
Did you move
to the
United
United States in 1990.
1990?
Yes.
So when I was 3.
Thank you for making me feel even older than I already feel.
You're not old. But you moved did you move here for school?
Yeah, so I finished high school
Okay.
at 17, which is not unusual for Panama and the school that I went to. And I had a family member that had lived in Huntsville for 30 plus years, and so I came to go to college, and so that's
Did
how
you
I
go to
started.
Birmingham? Or
No, actually to Huntsville.
so you weren't, I forget, you didn't go straight to being like a pre-med doctor,
Oh,
right?
no.
I forget. So tell me your story on what you did when you came here.
I took the scenic route. So I came to the United States to go to college, and my original plan was to go to engineering school. In fact, I did go to engineering school.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, yeah. I started out at Calhoun.
Okay.
And I got an associate's in chemistry and chemical engineering there. And that's when things started to go pear-shaped because I, took an EMT class and kind of got hooked on that. But then I also moved on to UAH. I transferred to UAH, and I did 4 years of engineering until I realized I hated engineering.
You went through 4 years, so you basically were done.
Yeah, I was a senior. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a closer. I do things, and then I'm like, get to the end. I'm like, okay, I think I'm done with this. So
I had no idea that you went through 4 years.
I did the same thing with nursing.
You went to nursing school too?
Did you not know that?
No.
Yeah. I was, well, let's go back. We'll get to the nursing part later. But yeah, so I did 4 years of college at UAH. And at the time, I had already started in EMS, and I got hooked, and went to paramedic school and loved it. And then life happens, right?
Yeah.
So I started working as a paramedic and loved it, and then I had to work as a paramedic, and so the school kind of took a little bit of a back seat, and I took a detour. So I did EMS here for about 15 years. I started in 1991, and I left in 2004 to go to medical school.
So you decided, where was the nursing school in between there? Did you go to engineering, finish it?
So I went to engineering, and actually I didn't finish. I guess I could go back and finish. I'm only maybe a semester away from getting my engineering degree. So I got to my senior year, and by then I decided, I love medicine. I think this is what I want to do, and I decided to change to pre-med.
Okay.
And I really took the scenic route because, by then again, life happens, and so I ended up getting married, ended up having a kid, and so I was working to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And so I was taking classes here and there, one at a time.
Was that with the classes that you were taking? Where is it for EMT or nursing at the time?
So at the time, it was pre-med.
Oh, it was pre-med.
Yeah, it was
okay.
pre-med. So I had finished my paramedic. I was working as a paramedic. I was actually teaching back when UH had the program. Then they closed that program, and I taught at a couple other colleges here. So I changed over to pre-med, and I was taking classes slowly, one at a time. And towards the end of that, this is circa 1997 to about 2001. I got a lot of my pre-med stuff done, and then my best friend at the time, we had kind of similar pathways and similar goals. So the plan was we were going to go to medical school, and he went to nursing school, and obviously the money was a lot better in nursing than EMS. And so I thought, I'll do nursing, and then I can do that maybe through medical school, or at least get ready to. And so I did the nursing program, and it was a distance program.
Okay.
And I finished all my classes, and there was a practical test you had to take at the end, and that's the only thing I needed.
That's it?
Yeah, that's the only thing I
Why
needed.
didn't you finish?
Because I got into medical school.
So, but you still could have taken the exam and then worked as a nurse during medical school, right?
I could have, although I don't know, and I did research this and think about it, is how realistic it was to work during medical school.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to be that realistic for me to work. And then also money plays into it, right? So, at the time it kind of seems silly, but it's not. I mean, I'm living on a paramedic salary, and I'm about to have no salary at all.
Yeah.
And, that practical test was like $1,700-$1,800. And so it's like, well, do I spend $1,700-$1,800 and then have to go through licensing for something that I might not use?
Yeah, because you can't do 12-hour shifts and be at medical school.
No.
So that wouldn't work.
And in fact, I didn't work at all during medical school. I don't think I could have, because it wasn't just medical school, but it was medical school with a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have worked.
But does that make you appreciate more, since you are an ER doctor? Does that make you appreciate more the nursing side of things? And because you kind of been through it all, like you had to do clinicals obviously to get into nursing school and things like that.
Oh yeah, and I think so.
Yeah.
And maybe it's me being kind of fool myself, but no, I think my background really has helped me. And it's funny because for the longest time, and we tend to kind of be our own worst critics. For the longest time, I felt bad, and I gave myself a hard time about taking the scenic route and not, going straight through and all the quote unquote wasted time. It wasn't wasted time.
No.
I
think
really
it makes you a better doctor.
It took all those experiences to get me to where I am,
Yeah.
and to make me the doctor that I was. And I gotta go back, and I gotta thank a lot of people that I can't individually name. But when I first came to the United States, again, I'm a kid. I'm a 17-year-old kid from, I lived in Panama City all my life, but I'm really a country boy from Panama.
Yeah.
And I came to, rural deep south, and I was basically
in the 90s.
In the 90s, and I was basically just absolutely taken up as a family by the ER at Athens. And those people to this day are my family.
Yeah.
And you know how it is.
Yeah.
We call ourselves a family in the ER because we go through so much together.
It's very dysfunctional.
And it is
Very
a dysfunctional
family, but it's a family,
sometimes incestuous family. But we are a family.
Yeah.
And I think we go through so much together. But those people raised me from, literally a little boy into a competent, provider and paramedic.
Yeah.
And so back then in those days too, is we at Athens, the paramedics work in the ER. So I was basically a tech
Okay.
for about 15 years.
Okay.
So
you've done it all.
Yeah.
Paramedic, teching, nursing.
Because we at Athens back in those days, you didn't have a station. You were in the ER. So you worked in the ER. And when you got a call, you left and went, picked the patient up, brought them back, and then you took care of that patient there. So it gave us a different experience and a lot of insight, because you could follow that patient longitudinally, which is something in EMS you don't often get.
Yeah.
We did the EKGs for the whole hospital, so we would get to follow that patient up when they went up to the ICU, or we would transfer them to another facility in the region. And so I think all those experiences did contribute to the person that I am now and the doctor that I am now.
I for sure believe that, because not saying that doctors don't care about their patients, because obviously you got into medicine because you care about people, but it's been often said that like nurses will go into a room and then they see everything, like the family, the vital signs, everything, where when Dr. Williams tells her story, she says she goes into the room, she sees a person, she sees cells, she sees anatomy. She's not seeing the emotion because she has to take the emotion out of it. So I think that gives you more of a well-rounded, I can see everything in the room versus this patient's just a bunch of cells, biology, anatomy.
I think, I don't know, that for me was, and I think that is a difference in the traditional medical student going on to residency and going to, becoming an attending, versus the non-traditional one that has some other life experience before, right? Especially if that experience is in healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. Former medics, former nurses, former, PAs, nurse practitioners, whatever you have. It does give you a little different perspective, because, what I do as a physician is different than what I did as a paramedic. Mm-hmm. Ironically, I think it's more similar in some ways to what I did as a paramedic. However, and this is one thing that I miss, because to me, being a paramedic was medicine in its purest form. It was you and the patient in a,
you had to make decisions.
12-foot by 12-foot aluminum box.
Yeah.
And you had to do it all. So you had to not only make the decisions, but you had to make it happen, right? Yeah. Now I walk into a room, I see a patient, I examine them, I talk to them, I make a decision, and then I have to rely on somebody else to make the things happen, right? So because I have another 14, 15, 17, however many patients simultaneously. So I'm more of a thinker and a decision maker than a doer, right? I don't have to start the IV. I don't have to give the meds. I don't have to do the things. And by extension, I'm not necessarily in the room for that whole period of time, interacting with the patient, interacting with the family. So I had to rely on the folks that are in the room to come to me and say, hey, you didn't pick up on this, or the patient said this after you left, or things have changed.
Well, I've learned that too, as from transitioning from a nurse to a nurse practitioner role. That was really hard for me to accept, not being in the room, starting the IV and doing the things, because then I felt like I wasn't doing anything for the patient. Yeah. And that took a good year or two to be like, okay, I actually am helping the patient, because I have to think and do and order. But that was a very hard transition for me. And so I'm assuming that was the same for you, from paramedic to physician. I need to be doing the things.
Yes, that was a very difficult transition. And it's funny because it happens gradually, right? Mm-hmm. In medical school, you have, limited responsibilities, and you pick up more and more and more and more. And then you hit residency, and you go from having little to no responsibility and layers of people checking on you to, it's all on you, mm-hmm. the responsibility. You still have layers of people checking on you. You have the attending that you check out to, and you consult, and they tell you, they smack you in the back of the head and say, don't do that, that's stupid. Or, the experienced nurse that does that before even you get to the attending. But yeah, it was very, very difficult thinking your mindset from, okay, I gotta make this happen make it happen and then move on to the next step.
Yeah.
It's now my job is really more of a thinker and decision maker, and but then you can transition that so that you're not just making a decision as to what's going to happen next, but what needs to happen next and the next step and the next step. And I think that's one of the things that I try to, teach, when I'm teaching paramedics, when I'm teaching my residents is you got to stay 2 steps ahead of the patient and not just make a decision as to what's going to happen next, but when what you do next doesn't work or does work, what's that next step?
Yep.
You need to be proactive more than reactive.
Agreed.
And I think that's another big change from, what I was doing before and what I'm doing now.
Well, same with me, because you just think about what's going on in the room at the moment instead of saying, well, what if this blood pressure drops? What if, so you have to play the what if game. What if all these things happen? So now transitioning into that, you've been an ER doctor for how long now?
I finished residency in 2011, so it's my 10th year out.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's my 10th year as nurse practitioner.
Well, see, there you go.
Oh my gosh, so we finished at the same time.
Yeah.
2010, you
2011,
said?
yeah.
Okay. Wow, that is so cool. I did not even know that. Wow. I'm learning a lot right here. This is I love doing podcasts with people that because you think you know them until you start asking them and interviewing them. So I love doing this. So we were talking that we wanted to talk about changes in life.
Yes.
So how long have you been at Huntsville Hospital ER?
10 years.
Okay. Yeah. So you started there as your first job?
This was my first job out of residency. Yes.
Okay. So.
And that was always my plan, was to come back home because Huntsville's home.
Yeah. What month did you start there?
August.
Oh my God. So seriously. So I didn't get a job in Huntsville when I first graduated nursing school in 2010 because they weren't hiring at the time. Huntsville Hospital was on and popping at that time. Yeah. So I went back to my hometown Winchester and worked for a year. So I started in September of 2011. So you were only there a year before me, but I thought you were this experienced.
No. Actually, so I was there a month before you.
No, I started 2011.
Yeah, that's when I started.
Oh, so you were only there a month?
Yeah. I started in August. So I guess we started at the same time.
And I thought you were just this experienced doctor. I didn't realize you were new.
No, I was brand new out of residency. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I fake it well.
We grew up in the ER together and we're leaving at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, this is funny. So we're going to talk about you leaving and the changes that we've seen throughout our years in emergency medicine.
Yeah.
So you have decided to take a job in Augusta, Georgia.
Correct. So that's where I did residency.
Okay.
And I thought about staying there. I love academics. I love teaching. Part of the plan was to come back home and start a residency here, and that never happened.
That would be cool.
I think we would have
it's going to happen
because
Huntsville's growing so much.
It will eventually happen. But that's where I did residency, and I stayed on faculty there. So actually I have been doing some teaching there between all my different interests because, I'm so ADD, I can't pick a single thing to kind of focus on.
And guys, he has to have 700 different jobs. He cannot even not be still. I'm shocked that we even get to go have brunch and do a podcast today because you have 5,000 jobs.
Well, I'm not homeless. I'm jobless now. So
you're not jobless. You have a job.
Yeah, I don't start until the 1st of November. So
you have a few weeks off finally.
I do. Actually, that's not true. I'm working my second or third job next week.
Oh Lord.
Tuesday through Friday or Saturday or something.
So how does it feel for you after 10 years is a decade, right? I know that sounds really
super. It's
okay. So a decade at this home, this place. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been here since you were 17, but this is your home.
Yeah.
So how does that feel transitioning into a new job, a new role? Obviously you have friends down there because you did residency.
Yeah.
But this is where you have said to me multiple times, this is your home.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Because you said you walked out of the ER last night for the last time.
Yeah. And it's sad. It's bittersweet. It's scary. And it's not like I'm going into the complete unknown. You already said it. That's where I did residency. Mm-hmm. I've been on faculty there. Over the last year, I did my ultrasound fellowship there. And I have lots of friends and buddies there. I know a lot of the the nurses and the physicians, although not so many of the nurses now because they've all left. That's a universal thing. But it's a complex feeling. I love this area. I love Huntsville. It is definitely home. This is where I grew up. My entire adult life, other than going away from medical school and residency, was here. I grew up here. I had, my first love was here, both career wise and not and personal wise. So it's hard to leave, but also I think I'm the more I experience, the more people I talk to, I think this is the right decision, because I haven't had a single person tell me, hey, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. And I think for 10 years I was kind of battling that, because this is home. Yeah. And I'm in my comfort zone. I didn't want to leave this place because it was comfortable. Not that it's a comfortable place to work. I mean, we
No,
do some
it's
hard
not.
work, and we see some really, really sick people and really high acuity. I think after 10 years, at this job, it's made me now ready to move on to the next step.
Yeah.
And so I think the opportunities coming, and the path that is before me is the right path. And I see a lot of opportunity there. All my people are there too.
Yeah.
Not that my people are not here either.
But it's a second home to you, in a sense.
But it's a second home for me. I mean, that's why I did residency. And again, it's funny because I've seen the progression and the way that a physician is trained, and I can compare that to the way I was, raised up as a paramedic, raised up as a nurse that I never, practiced as, and you rely on a tribe of people to bring you up.
For sure.
And to make you better, and to rely on their experiences, and to rely on the mistakes that they've made so that you don't have to make them. And so my first work family and my first racing was here. My second one was there, right? And I came back here and was able to participate and kind of help teach and train in the same environment that I was, taught and trained. And now I'm doing the same thing. Yeah. I'm kind of transitioning into the next step.
It's a different transition, probably a little bit slower pace, I would assume.
Well, not really. I mean, it's still going to be a level 1 trauma center.
Okay.
It's still going to be, a busy ER. It won't be as busy as ours, because ours is just, kind of crazy, volume and acuity wise. But it's still going to be, high volume, high acuity. In some ways, it might be even more difficult because, here I am either relying on myself, I'm working either by myself or I'm working with one of you guys, right? Tops maybe 2. Over there, I want to have multiple residents.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
It's more of a zone coverage type where I have to keep up with, multiple learning clinicians doing their own thing, and then, smacking them in the back of the head when they're doing
You'll never
something.
do that. You're too sweet to do that. But I feel like that's right up your alley because you can mold and train a physician into being someone who you are. Like, I think that you're very talented, very educated. I mean, you know what to do. You don't get overwhelmed very easily. I just think that would be a great job for you, is to teach these young physicians to be better off. Because think about during COVID and the physicians that were training during COVID, and some of these hospitals, like when we first had COVID come to our hospital, there was no one in the ER.
Yeah.
No one. And so what was their training like during that? Because we say the same thing for nurses. They weren't allowed to go to clinicals for a year.
Yeah.
So what are those, when they come out, going to be like?
And really, we don't know,
exactly.
Right? So we, COVID has definitely presented a training problem. It presented a training problem for our paramedic students.
Well, it's not just a
EMT
training
students,
problem.
for
It's
nursing
no
students.
one wants to do medicine anymore.
Nobody wants to do anything anymore, right? So we have a supply line
No one
problem
wants to work,
with
it's fine.
I think especially when it comes to healthcare and it's a crisis when it comes to EMS. There was a USA Today article the other day that talked about 1/3 of EMS providers last year did not renew their license, and so that leaves 2/3 working. And out of that 2/3, I think maybe I forget the numbers. 1/3 was actually providing patient care.
I know.
So you have 1/3 of providers working. Same thing with nursing, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a shortage of beds. There's plenty of beds. We don't have the nurses.
We don't have staff
to take care of the patients. So that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And healthcare is hard. It's hard emotionally. It's hard physically. It's turned into a service industry, which makes it even worse.
Which makes me so mad. It really lights a fire under my ass when people are like that we need to be giving wheelchairs to people who have toothaches or can walk, or we need to, give you a sandwich and a blanket. No, we don't.
I think it's hard because we do, it can go both ways, right?
But it's not a hotel. Let's just get that straight.
It's not. I mean,
and we're never going to get the service scores that a hotel has because we are not that.
Well, I think you have to remember that we are taking care of people often on the worst day of their life. And that worst day of their life can look a number of different ways. If you're young, spraining your ankle for the first time and having real pain for the first time is the worst day of your life, right? Because, you haven't had anything worse than that. That worst day of your life can also be a family member dying, right? Or them having a heart attack, or, them getting mugged and shot. And so I try to strive to take the best care of people that I can, and remember that they're in a situation that is often their worst day, but relying on those people to give you a grade on, hey, how well was your service this day? How did you feel about, how you were taken care of? It's often unrealistic, and I don't think the right focus. Yes, we need to make sure that we take care of people and we treat them with respect, that we try to reduce their pain, reduce their anxiety, and do a good job. And I like to treat people the way I would want to be treated when I go to the emergency department if I'm sick or ill. But, relying on somebody's opinion on how well their care was when, hey, somebody didn't bring me a sandwich, or it's frustrating. It's frustrating, and it's, I don't like, quote unquote newfangled terms, but people often use burnout or moral injury, and I think it is that. And I'll give you an example, and I probably shouldn't say this, but so over the last couple of days to weeks, it's been kind of a slow goodbye. Telling a lot of people goodbye, and it's sad. It is like I'm leaving home again, but it's also made me feel good because of the response that I've had, and what folks are telling me, about how they're gonna miss me, and their experiences with me in the resuscitation room, or teaching them or whatever. So it makes me feel good as a physician and as a person. And then last night I was emptying my mailbox, and we get little patient satisfaction scores like once a quarter with comments, and I had 4 comments, and one of the comments was glowing, and then the other 3 comments were just absolutely, it just kind of tore me down,
but but you're not, that's where I get irritated, because those comments were probably either you didn't keep giving them pain medicine, or you didn't give them something they wanted. Because you're a very good doctor. You're actually a very kind and caring doctor. You're not one of our doctors that just say, "How bye, go."
Yeah, and I gotta look at both sides of the coin, right? So what was it in that interaction that made that patient or that patient's family member feel that way for them to write that specific comment? And 3 of those comments, I'm like, this is not me. I don't know if am I sure that they got the right doc?
Probably
because
not.
This is not, but they may have, right? I don't know if was I in a particularly bad mood that day. I don't know if that's the case. Was it that I just didn't ask the right questions? I tell residents often that we and nurses, we focus on the chief complaint. When somebody walks in, what's your chief complaint? What is it that you're here for, right? And so, it says chest pain or shortness of breath or dizziness or whatever, and I really think the most important thing we need to focus on is the RRV, the real reason for visit. Why are you in my emergency department? And it's not often the complaint, is what is it that's worrying you? Often it's obvious. You come in, you fell, you broke your arm, there's a piece of bone sticking out. That's the reason for visit. But sometimes, especially in these vague ones where have dizziness or weakness or
even social.
Like
if someone keeps coming every day, then when they finally ask, like, why are you really, like, is something going on at home? And then they'll tell you, like, oh, my wife just passed away, I'm just lonely.
Yeah. So the real reason for visit is really the more important thing, and so often they're not the same, and often that doesn't come out until the very end because we're so chief complaint focused. Oh, you come in with chest pain and or let's say abdominal pain or nausea or weakness, dizziness, I don't know. You do a workup, you go in and tell the patient, hey, good news, everything looks good. I can't tell you what's causing this, but I can tell you that it's not anything bad. And they'll say, well, what about this? Or, so I don't have cancer. And so you have somebody that's been sitting in your emergency department for however long, worried that whatever vague complaint they have is cancer because they Googled it. And,
Which is, please stay off Google, people.
And so you really need to listen and try to get that up front because that would save a lot of time. But often the patient doesn't really want to, maybe the complaint seems silly, or maybe they just can't express what is really that they're worried about.
No, I completely agree with that. And I mean, all things come to an end. Like I'm leaving. My last day in the ER will be next month. But I'm actually not going to another ER like you are. I'm going to a completely different facility. I'm going to work at the orthopedic center doing completely different stuff that I've never done, which is scary. I don't know about you, but when I make a decision, like it takes, number one, I'm indecisive and I can't make a decision. So after I made my decision and accepted this job, literally couldn't sleep for the next 3 days. I'd lay in bed going, oh my God, did I make the right decision? Oh my God, am I going to, oh my God, this. And my aunt was like, Jonna, if you say that you made the wrong decision, I'm blocking you and I'm not allowing you to text me anymore, which everyone knows on this podcast that my aunt is like my personal therapist. So that would be just devastating. So did you go through a period where you were like freak out mode? Like, did I just make the right decision?
I'm still there, right? I'm still asking myself, is this the right decision? Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
And it's not just me rationalizing, hey, this is the right decision, but I've listened to, I think one of the things that made me make this decision is finally stop telling myself what I wanted to do or what I needed to do, and being resistant to this idea of moving away from Huntsville, because that was definitely a thing.
Yeah.
And listen to God speaking to me and saying, hey, this is your path, this is what you need to do. And I think it got to, I've had this opportunity before and I've turned it down and turned it down and turned it down. And then I think finally got to the point where I now feel it's the right time.
I know what you're saying, because when again, Huntsville wasn't hiring when I graduated from nurse practitioner school, so I had to move to Nashville for a year. And I wasn't ready. Like, I just had to throw myself into that because I needed a job, right? So you have to go where the money is. But I cried. I resisted it, called every day. You got a job yet? Do you got a job yet? Moved back to Huntsville because I had this whole idea in my head. This is where I will be. This is where, because I'm not from here either. Yeah. But all my friends are now my family. And I was like, I can't be away from my family. But when I started looking for jobs again, I actually did start branching out to other places because I was like, you know what? They'll always be my family. I think I'm now ready. I'm listening to the universe. Like my aunt always tells me, if you put positivity out there, you're going to get things back. And I started getting all of these job calls from everywhere: Nashville, Chattanooga, Georgia, Texas. And, you know, I was open to the idea of moving if I had to, because I'm just like, I know you said you don't want to do quote unquote burnout, but I am burnout. 10 years. They say about 10 years in the ER is kind of the max. It's kind of like I'm just done with all, like, I'm getting to the point where it's negative for me, which does affect patient care in the end. Yeah. So I think the best thing for a patient care is to realize where you are in your moment and to say, okay, I need to take a step back from this.
Yeah. And it's hard though, right?
Yeah, it is. Because
again,
what I know,
you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. It's also an opportunity to learn something new, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't come back to what you did before with more experience, a different perspective, and a different set of skills.
That's
right?
Very true.
So, you talked about earlier, you know, we are a very dysfunctional family, and we jokingly often say in the ED that it's like being in an abusive relationship. Yeah. You know, not to minimize being in an abusive relationship is like, but
But that's the only thing that we can relate it to.
Yeah, that's, you know, you're getting the beat down every day, but you know, you kind of thrive on it, and you keep coming back.
And then when you have the opportunity to leave, you're just like, oh,
I mean, it's you know,
it's hard to explain what we're saying if you've never been to an emergency room. Like, I know a lot of my friends didn't realize like why my personality has developed into the way it is. Very blunt, very matter of fact, kind of non-emotional. But then when my friends saw me in action at work, because one of their family members got very sick, and saw me take that same personality and be blunt and say, you're going to do this, and take the emotion out of it, she came to me after seeing that and was like, I completely understand your personality now.
And I think emergency medicine, emergency nursing, you know, the same thing. It's one of those things that you either love it or you hate it. You can't be lukewarm about it, right? Nobody is in the ED going like, yeah, this is okay, but I'll find something else to do some other time, right? You know, and, you know, when you precept, you find out very, very quickly, this is my tribe, this is my place. Yep. Or no. And it's the same thing with physicians, you know, like, you know, if you have the mind of a nephrologist, you will not thrive in the ED, right?
Well,
you hate to go in.
It's straight ADD brain, right? Like you said, you're so ADD, but that's good for you, because in the ER, people think, oh, you just go in. No, you go in and see patients, but then again, you might have a trauma coming in, but then you also have 3 physicians on the phone waiting for you. Then it's like, oh, I got to go sew the slack. So you have to have that brain functionality.
I think you have to be able to compartmentalize while at the same time not losing sight of the overall picture.
Agreed.
And it's a very, very weird thing to do, to have to, you know, I'm focusing on what I'm doing right now, which is critical, which is putting a central line or intubating this patient, or I have this patient that's septic that I need to put on pressors, and I need to really aggressively resuscitate that patient, while on the same time in the back of your mind thinking about the rest of the department and the fact that, you know, you still have a patient in another room that, you know, needs a consult or may have to go to the cath lab. And you can hyper focus while at the same time you have to kind of keep that background overall still picture of the ED. And then, you know, the fact that, you know, and nurses, you know, that I talk to all the time, and RTs and other personnel, you know, physicians, we kind of learn the noises, right? So, you know that, you know, you'll be doing something in the room, and then, you know, I'll hear the automatic stretcher kind of coming up and down, so I know that I have a patient going out there, or I'll hear the hissing of a, you know, high flow oxygen going by, so I know,
So
okay,
true.
I got something back up and going.
Yeah.
Or Lucas doing CPR, or the alarms, right? And
Yeah.
so you have to kind of pick up on those cues. So yeah, it's very, very ADD by design.
But
Because
it's
if
funny
you
that you
can't,
say that. Because do you forget about those cues when you go home now? Because I do. Like, I don't like new nurses. Like, when I was a new nurse and new, like, when you have new members come into the ER, they'll say, God, I just thought I heard the monitor all night long. I used to.
oh,
Now I
like
don't.
at home?
Yeah, like at
Oh, yeah,
home. Like,
no.
you're just like, the new nurses will be like, all night last night, I thought I heard the monitor going off. And you're like, no, you didn't.
Well, and I think that's part of your training, right? And that's part of how you kind of mature is you start to learn how to tune things out.
Yeah.
You know, you get hyper focused to those sounds, and oh, that sounded like the alarm.
Yeah.
And then you kind of learn to tune things that don't matter out. So
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's almost time for us to go to brunch. Is there anything else that you would like to say on the podcast before we go?
no, I again thank you for having me on the podcast.
Of course.
I want to say it's been a pleasure working with you, and can't be strangers.
Duh.
And I did start out by saying this, and I don't know if anybody, that I know from back in the day is listening to this, but I do have a lot of people to thank. There's too many of them to name, but to all of you who brought me up from a little baby, person and a little baby medic to where I am now, both here and in Augusta, where I'm going back to second home. Thank you. And I think transitions are a good time to stop and reflect and see what has gone right, what has gone wrong, what you can change, but mostly to be grateful. And you need to express that gratefulness to the people who have allowed you to become who you are.
Agreed.
And so to all of you who have worked with me at Janus General, as I call it, and before, thank you so much. And I won't forget you, and you'll see me around.
And this is not goodbye. This
No.
is see you later.
No, this is see you later. So,
But since I made my friend David introduce a podcast in a different language, I want you to exit the podcast in Spanish. I want you to say, until next time, bye.
well, I'll say this
Okay.
because my dad had a saying, which is, and I'll translate it. It says, we don't say, what did he used to say? So, no decimos muchas gracias, decimos muchas veces. We don't say thank you, we say many times. Okay. So, Jonah, muchas veces. We'll do this again sometime.
Oh, I love it. Okay, guys, until next time, this is goodbye.